Welcome to SI Now. I'm Robin Lundberg here with Madeline Burke, and I think it's fair to say we get along better in the office here than the Cavs do in the locker room.
I feel like that set the bar pretty low, Robin, but I think you're right with that one. The Cavs reportedly had an emotional meeting on Monday accusing Kevin Love of faking it. Players, coaches, and management held a meeting before practice and questioned the legitimacy of Love's illness that caused him to leave Saturday's loss in OKC and to miss practice Sunday. Now, Love says he felt dizzy. The Cavs are calling it fakeitis. Woj says the Cavs locker room is increasingly full of finger pointing, but the meeting did help resolve some issues. Now, is it time for the Cavs to move on from Love and kind of separate from this?
It feels like Kevin Love finally got out of these trade rumors for a while, and now he's pulled right back in. Look, if I was looking at this Cavaliers core, I would consider blowing up the whole thing. Here's the problem. Nobody has any trade value. The Cavs have two pieces with trade value. One is LeBron James, who you see right there, but he has a no-trade clause. He's not getting moved. The other is the Brooklyn Nets draft pick, which we've heard bandied about. If you're trying to ship out Kevin Love and get things in return to help you right now, not only would you have to shuffle the way you play, but you'd have to realize that there is not that on the market, and that's the real problem for Cleveland.
Well, and we know when Kevin Love came to Cleveland, he had a hard time meshing with LeBron James. He kind of got going a little bit. Now that Isaiah Thomas has returned to the starting lineup, he's having a hard time fitting in with this offense. His points per game has dipped 10 points per game since December to January. I mean, there's definitely a little bit of struggle fitting in here. It's just a cohesion problem, perhaps?
Well, a lot of the trouble seems to coincide with Isaiah coming back. I don't want to point it just at him, but they were rolling a little bit, and then they were integrating the pieces, whether it was Tristan Thompson and then later Isaiah. But Kevin Love and LeBron seemed to be cool because Kevin Love sent out a congratulatory thing when LeBron made the All-Star team captain. LeBron was publicly, trying to promote Kevin Love for the All-Star team as well. So I really don't think it's a Kevin Love and LeBron issue, but the Cavs, they clearly have issues. We now welcome
No one wins when the family feuds.
No, quote Hov. There's a Jay-Z lyric for everything, man.
Right, yes.
We now welcome in our NBA insider, Jay-Z, Jared Zwirling. And Jared, Jason Kidd fired by the Bucks. Talking to your sources, was this a long time coming?
Through my sources, actually last summer there was some talk about firing Jason Kidd. There was two sides of the coin. One side, they love Jason Kidd. They like his in-game playmaking, his in-game adjustments, his X and O's, obviously his legacy as a future Hall of Fame point guard. Other side of the coin, his lack of communication, played some mind games with some of the players, especially during film sessions, would call out some of the guys, even in timeouts, talk some trash. He took more of a old school approach, get in your face. He didn't really take much of a comforting approach to the players, so that was really a big issue there. So ultimately, it was really started last summer, escalated. Bucks are the AC right now currently with that talent. Giannis, Jabari Parker coming back soon, Chris Middleton playing very well, getting Eric Bledsoe. Clearly some talent there. Now, to some credit, obviously they got Bledsoe this season. Jabari Parker's not back yet. They don't have continuity to really get that push, to make a really big push into the East right now. But there was some issues with Jason Kidd's approach to coaching. Also, another issue, too, is he wanted to do too much personnel decision-making. And they said, Jason, stick to coaching. That's what you're here to do. There are coaches in the NBA that have more power, control. But really, talking to my sources, it's really important for coaches and just people in management to focus on what they do best, and that's coaching. Jason Kidd didn't do the best at that, and that's where really the biggest issue was.
Now, you mentioned Giannis. There were reports that he wanted to kind of intervene. He offered Jason Kidd to call the management, offered to call his own agent. But what was the relationship like between other players and Kidd in this organization?
Well, I mentioned the mind games. Obviously, that was a big part of it. Really, no one's really come out publicly on Twitter or really supported Jason Kidd during this time. I did talk to another source. The source said that the GM of the Bucks called each player individually and each player agent individually. And there was no talk about you cannot talk to the media. They were welcome to talk to the media. No one's really come out. Even Giannis hasn't said anything yet. Really, Jason Kidd spoke to Ramona Shelburne and expressed that he did talk to Giannis, and there was obviously some really disappointment from Giannis' side that he felt devastated, really didn't see this coming. Look, Jason did a very good job with Giannis, made him a point guard, right? I mean, who doesn't want to play point guard in the NBA? And Giannis was a 6'11", 7-foot point guard, did his thing, really blossomed this year, averaging around 28 points per game, second in the NBA. So really did a fantastic job, really helping Giannis get into that point guard position. But overall, a lack of continuity, obviously, but some of the issues with the mind games, the lack of communication, those things hurt Jason Kidd ultimately.
Of course, when a story like this happens, fans of other teams start salivating, even thinking of the possibility of Giannis wanting out of Milwaukee. Do you think this could damage his relationship with the Bucks?
I don't see it right now. He's going to be free agent 2021. That's 3 years from now. So the most important thing is getting a coach that really can put Giannis in still the position to succeed. That's at point guard, clearly number one, and really making him the best player possible in the NBA. And that's really where a lot of NBA players see Giannis. They see him as the best player in the NBA. So can they put in a position to succeed? Look, Giannis came from Greece, right? So he was a foreigner coming into the NBA. He saw Jason Kidd almost like a father figure, right? A guy who really was his first real head coach, really helped him blossom, not just on the court, but off the court, right? So the connection with Giannis and Jason Kidd goes beyond basketball. This is a personal development process for a kid from overseas to Milwaukee, a huge cultural shock. So we have to keep that in mind too, right? So for a coach coming in, someone who's going to comfort Giannis, really be on his side, learn about his culture, learn about the food he eats, just the whole entire situation from his family. Also Giannis lost his father this year, Charles. So Giannis has had a tough year from his father passing to Jason Kidd. So someone who needs to come in and really help Giannis focus on basketball. Monty Williams seems like the best guy out there right now. I think he's a fantastic coach, helped Team USA a couple years ago. A really good guy. And Monty lost his wife in a car accident. So I'm sure Monty and Giannis would have a lot in common with the personal side of their lives and how they can help each other in the next phase of Giannis' career. So I'm really curious if Monty could be the next guy there.
Yeah, 5 coaches in 5 years has got to be tough for a young superstar. But another young superstar, Kawhi Leonard, there's been some news around him. ESPN is reporting that there's a growing rift between Kawhi and the Spurs as Leonard tries to get back on the court this season. You've been talking to some people close to Kawhi. What are you hearing? Yeah,
I had a phone conversation yesterday with with Kawhi's uncle and business manager, Dennis Robertson, who's actually based in New Jersey. Dennis called me. We had a nice chat. Actually, before he called me, Dennis had a chat with R.C. Buford, GM of the Spurs, and it was a great conversation. Overall, here's the consensus. The story is farthest from the truth. That was a quote from Dennis. And, we talked about the situation. Really, there's no issue between Kawhi and the Spurs. Kawhi has a lot of utmost respect for Popovich and Buford. It's not about any issues internally. This is about not having any more setbacks. There's no re-injury right now. The focus is strengthening that left quad, and that's a very important thing here because the quad injury is one that really comes back and bites you. It's an injury that you can get again. It re-injures a lot easily, so that's a very important thing. So really, it's about strengthening that quad, keeping Kawhi focused on getting back into that strength to help him into the NBA situations. That's the focus right now.
So they're not worried at all right now?
There's no worry. There's no worry right now.
When is he going to be back on the court? When can we expect him back on the court?
Well, there's no rush right now this year. I think right now the most important thing is really alleviating that pressure off the quad, getting the strength back. They're not going to push him back. The key is the NBA pounding, really getting the focus of the strength of the NBA season against contact. Can Kawhi withstand that and really build him back in practice? So there's no rush right now. Like I said, there's no setback. There's no re-injury. The relationships are very good between Spurs and Kawhi. So really, there's no pressure. Popovich, as you know, he's all about minutes restrictions, right? And really not playing guys in back-to-back games. So there's no pressure right now. The Spurs are top 4 in the West right now. So we'll see how that plays out for Kawhi. But it's an injury, like I said, that can come back and bite you. You can't push it right now.
Yeah, an injury like that has got to be frustrating. Other frustrations with the Washington Wizards, though. They held a players-only meeting recently to air some grievances. But J.J. Barea says that the meeting did not address all the issues, saying he finally has someone in the NBA he doesn't like in John Wall, adding he doesn't think the rest of the team likes Wall either. Now, is there truth to that, or is Barea just upset because Wall said Barea was, quote, just a little midget trying to get mad?
Yeah,
those are actual words.
Yeah. Obviously, a lot of trash talking this year, right? Fines and suspensions and guys fake fighting and stuff. So a lot of war words this season. It's farthest from the truth. I spent some time around the Wizards. Actually, a former colleague of mine used to work with the Wizards. Now he's back with the Wizards. So the contentions there are not really there. It's a very good environment. I've been around the team, like I said. It's a fun locker room, a lot of joking, a lot of friendliness. They are very close to him off the court with bonding, with dinners. John Wall, if you saw this year, he bought all the team Rolexes during the Christmas holidays. So the camaraderie is very strong. There was a story even last year about Bradley Beal and John Wall not getting along, also overblown as well. So this team has been together for about 4 or 5 years now. Marcin Gortat, Otto Porter, Kelly Oubre, Bradley Beal, John Wall. This has been a very strong starting 5, and also some of their guys off the bench. They've been together for a few years now. So continuity is there. And that's another big factor. That's why there's not a lot of issues there. This team likes to be together. They want to really make this push. There is some frustration. John Wall's missed some games this year with his injury. They haven't really made that push in the East. That's also part of it, too. We always talk about the NBA, all these overblown stories. A lot of it comes down to just frustration, and that's what it is right now. They want to get back to their winning ways. They still have a top seed in the East. Can they make that home court advantage to get the home court advantage in the playoffs? We'll see. But right now, it's a good environment to be in. They like playing together. That's the most important thing.
Well, you mentioned, though, the the rift between, or the reported rift between Beal and Wall last year, and then now Wall's name coming up again this year. Why is it that Wall's name keeps coming up as the villain in this one?
Man, I don't know. I mean, obviously he's missed some games with the knee injury, and John, if you know John, he's a little bit of a standoffish guy. He does post-game conferences with the glasses on. He likes to be a little standoffish. He doesn't really give you long answers. He's in and out. He's a very competitive player. Maybe he rubs some guys the wrong way because of his competitive nature. I don't know. But John, I've gotten to know him. He's a really great guy. Like I said, he gave the team gifts this year. He's very close to the guys. So I've only seen positive news, around the Wizards. So I'm not really sure where that comes from, to be honest with you.
Now, there was actually some action on the court as DeMarcus Cousins put up the kind of performance that compelled LeBron James to tweet, "Yo, Boogie Cousins, chill out, man. Sheesh. Super sick stat line." It was a super sick stat line indeed, making Boogie Cousins our adrenaline performer presented by Toyota. Let's go places. DeMarcus boogied all over the box score, putting up 44 points, 24 rebounds, and 10 assists in a Pelicans win over the Bulls. Cousins joins Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Elgin Baylor, and Oscar Robertson as the only players with 40-point, 20-rebound, and 10-assist lines. But where does this healthy triple-double stack up all time? Well, just last year, Russell Westbrook went for 57, the most points scored in the triple-double, 13 and 11, while his runner-up for the MVP, James Harden, put up 53, 16, and 17. Some big men have also put up big numbers. Shaquille O'Neal had a 24-point, 28-board, 15-block game, while Hakeem Olajuwon, who once had a quadruple-double, almost had another, with 29 and 18, along with 11 blocks and 9 assists. And of course, no list of statistical accomplishments would be complete without Wilt Chamberlain, who had the only 20-20-20 game in NBA history with 22 points, 25 rebounds, and 21 assists. It's Tuesday, which means Dan Green is here to break down the latest college basketball rankings. But let's start with a team that's not in the top 25. Kentucky has dropped out of the AP rankings for the first time since 2014. Dan, what's wrong with the Wildcats, and is it fixable?
The cause of their problems isn't fixable, but some of the problems themselves might be. The cause being this extreme youth, even by Kentucky standards. They're literally the least experienced team in the country. It's been talked to death all season, but it's not going away. Their most experienced returnee averaged 8 minutes a game last year and is a sophomore. So there's growing pains that come with that, especially when you don't have the veterans sprinkled in to lean on. So they've had some problems with ball movement, with turnovers. Their defense has lapses at times. Those are the kinds of things you can work on. They're getting Jared Vanderbilt back and up to speed now, who's going to be a big addition for the stretch run. And if anyone has experience figuring out these kinds of things on the fly, it's John Calipari. I think he's going to be up to the task. I think he enjoys some of that work to some extent. And we're going to see him mixing and matching and figuring things out. Are they going to be the top 5, top 10 team some people expected them to be coming into the year? Probably not, but this is still a team that he can pull together and win some games in March.
All right, well, after back-to-back losses, Oklahoma and Trae Young suffered probably the biggest slide in the top 25 from 4 to 12. And so against Oklahoma State, Young scored a career-high 48, but he shot just 14-39 and coughed up 7 turnovers. Now, should he try to do less on the court, and should this team try to win with more balance?
It's a tough balancing act with him to pull off because so much of their success has been because of these outlandish things he's done and the way he's kind of taken the team on his back at times. And he thrives so much on having this freedom to do these kind of daring things and take these shots that might otherwise be ridiculous and really create and experiment and be creative out there. At the same time, we're seeing that you can kind of run into a ceiling with that a little bit, and especially with the turnovers, he's got to cut down on those. And there might be some times where it's best to try to distribute as these teams are trying to key in on more and get a guy like Christian James more involved or find Brady Manick out there. And so that's going to be the tough call when so much of your success has been because he's been having these kinds of nights. How much can you rein him in? How much should you try to rein him in? And how much is it, more of just trying to find better ways to utilize him and keep other teams on their toes? I think the other thing that they can do is tighten up things defensively a little bit. They can get in these stretches where they're just trading baskets basically back and forth. And so if they do that, if they maybe rely a little bit less on Trae Young to just kind of do everything, this could be a formula for some success. And he's a willing distributor. He leads the country in assists, so he shouldn't have too much of a problem doing that. And that's going to be something that Lon Kruger has to kind of figure out how to balance those two things going forward.
Well, switching gears to one of the hottest teams in the country, number 13, Ohio State. They've won 8 straight, 4 of their last 8 games. Is this Buckeyes team a real contender for the Big Ten title?
They are. I think anytime you start 9-0 in the Big Ten, you have to be considered a real contender. They've already played and beaten Michigan State. They have a game coming up against Purdue in a couple weeks that could end up being kind of a de facto regular season Big Ten championship game. But regardless of the standings and the schedule, this is looking like a championship caliber team. And Chris Holtmann has done an amazing job in his first season, really turning this team into a winner right away. They play good defense. They take care of the ball. They're scoring very efficiently in Big Ten play. Keita Bates-Diop has looked making one of the biggest strides this season in terms of just becoming a leading man on a contender. He's been a quality player for a couple of years, but now he's looking like the Big Ten Player of the Year. So this is absolutely a team that can win the Big Ten title, be relevant on the national stage, and look at that Purdue game coming up on February 7th as kind of sorting out the top 2 in the conference.
Now, over the weekend, the number 2 high school player in the country, Zion Williamson, committed to Duke. They now have the top 3 recruits coming in next season.
Pretty stacked.
Yeah, pretty stacked. I mean, we've got the Warriors, we've got the Patriots, and now we've got Duke. Is this a bad thing for college basketball?
It's probably a bad thing if you're in Chapel Hill or if you're Kentucky or whoever else was trying to get these guys, but I don't think it is. I think that there's a lot of different ways to have a compelling college basketball product, and one of the ways is having these kind of super teams that then everyone wants to see lose or at least play. And Duke is building one of those teams, and I think the difference between, say, a Warriors or a Patriots is, in basketball, the good thing about the one-and-done system.
It's realistic that they can get knocked out.
Yeah, and that this is only going to be a team for a certain amount of time, this specific team, and then it's going to be a new team the next year. So you're not going to necessarily have a team that runs roughshod for 4 years together. So I think it's good to have, coming into a season, these teams where there's high expectations and everyone's talking about and looking at them, and they kind of give you a measuring stick and a central focal point to follow the product, especially if you're not, more casual college basketball fan. And especially if you just like the drama of having say a villain or a top dog that teams are gunning after and trying to knock off. So I think it can be a really good thing when you have these kinds of teams come together and it makes for some exciting things to talk about and debate and some good basketball to watch.
So you're saying some people hate Duke?
I think I've heard such things.
Yeah.
Might have heard that once or twice. Yeah.
Appreciate the time today.
Thank you.
We've got some NFL coaching hires that have been made, and for more on that, we welcome in MMQB's Albert Breer. Albert, thanks for joining us. First of all, we got to start with Pat Shurmur after the NFC Championship debacle in Philly. Should the Giants fans be worried about what the former Vikings offensive coordinator brings?
I know that they're probably already pushing the panic button and wondering what the hell happened on Sunday. I wouldn't worry about it too much, especially because I think there are a couple of things that Pat brings that the Giants need immediately. The first thing, they're going to need some help in identifying their next quarterback and then developing their next quarterback with the second overall pick. We've seen the work that Pat's done in getting the most out of Sam Bradford last year and then Case Keenum this year. So he's certainly got that element. And then the second element, the Vikings have been through a lot the last 2 years, and Pat's been charged with putting out a lot of fires. And you go back to 2016, obviously the freak injury to Teddy Bridgewater, the issues in the offensive line. Mike Zimmer missed a game because of his eye surgeries. Norv Turner resigned in the middle of the year. Pat was the one who was elevated. He was around a lot of issues over the course of the last 2 years in Minnesota, and he's been really good at putting out fires and keeping things level. And certainly with the locker room issues that the Giants have, and you can go right on down the list, Odell Beckham, Janoris Jenkins, Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, Eli Apple, Eric Flowers. They need somebody who can come in and manage problems. And certainly I think what we've seen the last couple of years in Minnesota is that Pat Shurmur is pretty good at that.
Now, Albert, Pat Shurmur's name was out there. Steve Wilks, not as much, the defensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers, hired by the Cardinals. Why was he the hire there in Arizona?
Well, he became a hot name. Really, this goes back to last year. Both him and Mike Vrabel sort of got on the radar of teams as position coaches, then were elevated to become coordinators in 2017. And I think that allowed a lot of teams to do some studying on these two guys. And really, they have a similar strength, and that is that they're both program leaders. They're both capable of being program leaders. And I think that's what you get with Steve Wilkes, is there's a real presence. And when he walks into a room, guys sit up straight, guys listen, guys respond. And, we can talk a lot about being a guru on one side of the ball or the other, but ultimately, that's the biggest part of the job, is being able to unify guys and bring guys together. And I think that projecting him into that role as a head coach, that was something that I think most teams that looked at him and evaluated him as a candidate felt like would be a great strength of his. The Cardinals went into this wide open. They didn't have any sort of preconceived notion on who they were going to hire. And really the plan here was find a way to bring in the guy who can be a coach for the next 10 or 15 years. They knew that there was a shelf life with Bruce Arians. And so they want someone they can grow with, their team can grow with. Obviously, there are going to be some big decisions to make on the offensive side of the ball. The first one is going to be who's going to be the coordinator. So there are some big decisions ahead. But in this sort of period of transition, I think the Cardinals really felt like they needed a leader, wanted to go into this process open, and were really impressed by Steve Wilkes, the man. That was the big thing. A
true coaching search, I guess. Albert, thanks for the info. Appreciate it as always. Now, while the Cavs have been in a tailspin, the Miami Heat have been quietly keeping pace in the East and could overtake Cleveland before too long. Jared Zwerling sat down with a key piece of the Heat's momentum, Goran Dragic.
Goran, thanks for joining us, my man.
You're welcome.
Third year with the Heat, what's your success this year? How would you define it for yourself?
It's going great. We have a lot of players that can do multiple things. We don't have a superstar really, but we're playing a team ball. And, this year we're really playing well. Hopefully we're going to continue like that. But at the same time, we can play even better. So it's a learning process. We still got left 39, 40 games, so it's still a long way to go.
You said to play even better. How would you do that? How do you facilitate that for yourself and the team?
I think so. We can special correct our defense. I think so. We are 16 in the league in our defense. We feel like that we can be in top 10 definitely. Especially at the beginning of the season, we were not consistent enough. We play one good game, two bad ones, then two good games and three bad ones. So it was not really a consistency. But right now we feel much better, we're consistent, and that's why we feel like that our record should be better than it is, but we are satisfied with our record.
Practices are so intense with the pads and the physicality. How would you describe that for people who haven't seen that, obviously? How would you describe just that intensity, the practice sessions and things like that?
But yeah, the Miami Heat culture is different than from other teams. It's not for everybody, Miami Heat, they're saying, because, we really want to be in the best shape that we are. They're checking us for body fat every week, and we always play hunger games in practice. That means pads on, mouth guards on, and try to go hard as possible.
You play with so much energy all the time. Where do you get that from? Obviously, you mentioned the practices and the intensity probably helps you so much, but you're running with the second gear all the time. You're always pushing the pace so well. Where do you find that energy for yourself?
I don't know. It's just the way that I'm built, the way I like to play basketball. I have to say our pace is not high this year, but I feel great. I mean, I'm just trying to have fun because sooner or later this is going to be over. I'm 31 years old, so I want to take advantage of every opportunity that I get, every minute, every second that I spend on the court. Try to be happy and try to be me.
How much does that nickname, the Dragon, mean to you when you hear that on social media from fans?
It means a lot. It means a lot, especially because Steve Nash gave it to me, and the funny thing is he didn't know that the capital city of Slovenia is Ljubljana. That I grew up, and the logo is a dragon. So it's kind of a perfect nickname for me, and I like it.
I know some fans have been very funny after games. Like one fan said, "Go back to Russia," and you said, "I'm not from Russia." Yeah. What do you hear from fans around different arenas?
I mean, a lot of different stuff, but at the same time, they just some fans they want to get under your skin. Some fans, they cheer for you. It's all normal. It's part of the sport. Yeah, that was one fan in Charlotte. I just correct him. I'm not from Russia. I'm from Slovenia. So because it means a lot to me that I want to represent my country. It means everything.
I did want to ask you, I know your grandfather unfortunately passed away last year. You carried his legacy, thinking about him, you grew the beard out. Yeah. How have you carried his honor with you this year?
I pray to God every day. You know, I was really close with my grandpa, and you know, he passed like 2 days before the European Championship, and you know, I always have a positive thoughts. He wants me to play well, to you know, to help my country or my team, and I had this in my mind. And you know, I pray before the game, say, okay, Grandpa, let's do this thing together and try to win.
And just last one before you go on, just goals looking ahead after All-Star break. What's important for you with leading this team and playoff success?
The most important thing, you know, try to get some rest, and then when that second part of the season comes, try to be even better than that we are now. Try to develop our game on higher level, and try to finish the season, you know, as high as we can, so that we make playoffs, and from there on, you know, it's a 7-game series, so everything is possible.
Gordon, thanks for joining us, man. Best of luck this year.
Thank you. Appreciate
and we'll see you in the playoffs.
Thank you.
Cool.
On Wednesday night, the 2018 class of the Baseball Hall of Fame will be announced. Now, some big names on the ballot, many with asterisks like Bonds, Clemens, and Sosa. And to break it all down, we're joined by the author of the Cooperstown Casebook, Jay Jaffe, who comes to us courtesy of Toyota. Let's go places. Now, Jay, Chipper Jones is leading the vote so far, and he's got the credentials to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Is he going in as the best switch hitter of all time?
No, I think the best switch hitter of all time is probably Mickey Mantle. But Jones, I think, has a reasonable claim as the second best, and certainly the best switch hitting infielder. You know, he's a guy who, you know, had power, certainly could hit for average, won a batting title late in his career, was the cornerstone of that Braves dynasty that reached the playoffs every year from, I think it's 1991 to 2005, with the exception of the strike year. Really just a remarkable player, one of only a small handful of players to finish his career with a 300 batting average, 400 on base percentage, and a 500 slugging percentage in more than 10,000 plate appearances.
Definitely an impressive resume. Now, Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, they've seen their voting percentage increase since last year. Firstly, are they getting in? And if so, would it tarnish the credibility of the Hall?
I don't think they're getting in this year, but I do think that they are slowly creeping towards election. They'll have 4 more years of eligibility after this year. I'm of the mind that, you know, what they did or are alleged to have done happened before Major League Baseball had a testing regimen in place. There were no penalties for that. You know, when you look at the history of the Hall of Fame and the rogues that are in it, this is not a church. I don't think that what these guys are alleged to have done is something that's so far out of line that it's unworthy of enshrinement. When you consider how many players from the 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s were using amphetamines to stay in the lineup every day, really, I can't get too worked up over this.
All right, now Sammy Sosa currently has less than 10% of the vote. The guy is one of only 9 players in the 600 club. This is his 6th year on the ballot. Does he deserve a nod if Bonds and Clemens eventually get in?
You know, when I look at them with Sosa, with my system, the Jaffe wins above replacement score, JAWS, Sosa to me falls a bit short of the average Hall of Fame right fielder. I mean, so much of his peak is that 4-year period there where he hit 60 home runs 3 times. You know, a lot of people think that was all due to steroids. I think he's a tougher nut to crack for me than Bonds and Clemens, who excelled throughout their careers, because he did not excel throughout his career. It's just a concentrated peak. You know, I wouldn't really have a problem with him getting in, but I think he's far down on the ballot for me if I'm trying to choose the 10 most worthy honorees.
Now, in this class, it seems like there are some sure things, but do you see any surprises once all the votes are accounted for?
I think the big surprise to me would be if Edgar Martinez does creep over that 75% line. He has been polling at about 80% so far. The last couple of years, he's seen a significant drop-off between the published ballots and the unpublished ones. It's going to be close here. The good news is that even if he doesn't make it this year, he's still got next year, and he's really surged over the last few years. I think it'll be a great day when he gets in, whether it's this year or next year. But if he gets in this year, that will mean we have 5 honorees, because I think Trevor Hoffman is most likely to get in as well, along with Jim Thome and Chipper. and Vlad Guerrero. That would be the first time since 1936 that we've had a five-man class, and that was the original five-man class. Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, Walter Johnson, Christy Mathewson, and Hans Wagner. That would be remarkable if they could join that company.
Jay Jaffe, thank you so much for the time. We'll definitely check back in with you once all the votes are tallied.
All right, sounds great. Thanks a lot, Madeline.
Well, LaVar Ball's influence in Lithuania continues to grow. He will be an assistant coach on LaMelo and LiAngelo's Lithuanian team, Vytautas' next game. So, Madeline, do you worry about playing under LaVar Ball if you're one of the other players on the team?
This is just, it's hilarious. It's amazing. It's you know, you keep thinking, all right, this is just going to be it. This is going to be the most ridiculous thing that happens. And then it just keeps growing. And so now I wouldn't be surprised if eventually LaVar ended up coaching the team.
Yeah, just pass it to LaMelo and no, it would be Jello and Melo, right?
Jello and Melo. Yeah, it's, you know, it's got a nice ring to it.
What's the Big Baller Brand Challenge? How could it be that without the Big Baller himself?
It's true, it's true. And you know what? Over there in Lithuania, it's clear they love these guys. These guys are superstars, and I think LaVar loves being a superstar, so it really plays up well.
Well, it'll definitely do well on the internet, I'm sure, once he makes his coaching debut. We'll be back tomorrow with reaction to that and much more right here on SI Now Live, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. For the latest videos and updates, make sure you follow at SI Now Live on Twitter. Do you consider yourself a big baller?
I'm a regular size baller.
Regular size baller?
Yeah, average at best.
Medium is good.
Garden variety
It was
baller.
the porridge you went for.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever eaten porridge?
Oatmeal.